I ain't afraid of no ghosts. Ghostbusters, set in the real world. There are two kinds of people in this world, my friend. Those who keep making movies, and those who retire. You retire. Right, anyway, screen 2. That's the one. In we go. You would not believe how long I had to hold in my pee throughout the second half of that Dune movie. I was literally chatting to some dude at the male's toilets, and he asked me if I enjoyed the movie, and I said, yeah, enjoyed the movie, and he acknowledged, you can't quite recapture that experience on the small screen, and I acknowledged, yeah, if you got that DVD for the small screen, it would be quite a disappointment compared to always on the big screen. The only way to really recapture that experience is to get a man cave. Anyway, what of the movie itself? I'll tell you. Sorry if that was racist. What a film that was! I'm going to say right off the bat, if you're looking for a fun, action-packed summer blockbuster, sorry to disappoint, this is not necessarily a fun movie, depending on how you define fun. This is meant to be more of an insightful movie, an immersive movie. It doesn't just exist to entertain you, it exists to immerse you. It's this type of immersive storytelling that I highly endorse. It's the type of immersive storytelling done in Samurai Jack. It's the type of immersive storytelling done in Hollywood epics like Ben-Hur and Lawrence of Arabia. It was done in the Studio Ghibli movies. And it's done here with the recent ambitious adaptation of Frank Herbert's epic sci-fi novel, Dune, directed by Denis, the same man who brought us Blade Runner 2042 a few years ago. This man seems to thrive with slow-paced, cinematic sci-fi movies. He also made Arrival. According to interviews, he always wanted to see a Dune movie done right, but nobody did it. It seems God had placed him in this world to do just such a thing. Much like how Paul was made to have those prophecies he kept seeing. I haven't seen the other adaptations of Dune, but I have read like the first 160 or so pages of the book. It's a long-winded read. And that long-winded sense of exposition was captured well in the film, for better or for worse. Yeah, this can be a major make or break deal depending on what you want in your storytelling. This story, regardless if it's the source material or adaptation, it's got a lot of exposition. I mean a lot. The majority of the time spent with the film is spent talking about geopolitics and really spending a lot of time building this world. It's taken very seriously. Though fortunately not too seriously to the point of being pretentious. There is some humor thrown in there, and it's good humor. Especially from Jason Momoa. You're awesome, Jason Momoa. So what's the story of Dune Part 1? Yeah, even for almost 3-hour length film, this film still couldn't contain the whole story, so the filmmakers made the wise choice of making Part 1 and Part 2. But they can only make Part 2 if this movie succeeds in the box office. Go watch it if you haven't already. So the story centers around a young man named Paul. Young man, young boy, older boy, young man. He is the son of two mighty legacies. One, he is the son of the Duke, played by Oscar Isaac, whom you might recognize as Poe from the Star Wars sequel trilogy. The Duke is the rich leader of the Atreides clan. They have a planet all of their own. It kind of looks like New Zealand as well as the sweet home of the Highlands, in a way. The other legacy, he is the daughter... Nope, he's the daughter... No, my words are not making sense. He is also the son of a woman who is part of the Bene Gesserit. Or was it Bene Gesserit? The Bene Gesserit are these supernatural, witchy kind of groups, only consisting of women. Yeah, they were hoping she would have a daughter, but I guess Paul will have to do. The Atreides family are undertaking some political business to help the Fremen who live in the desert planet called Arrakis. On this desert planet, there is the most valuable resource in the story called spice. This more colored sand they call spice offers them power and finance. Spice is essentially this powerful hallucinogenic dust particle that's essential for space travel and can grant some psychic abilities. And like the Adam material from Bioshock, everybody wants it, everybody needs it. So Paul and his family are doing the trade stuff and official business, but the spice itself is guarded by the deadliest creature on Arrakis. Gigantic sandworms. A real spectacle to see on the big screen. And to make matters worse, the hostile Harkonnens, led by the evil Baron, played by Stellan Skarsgård in his most intimidating performance yet, things are not looking good for the Atreides family. But as Paul begins his adventure, he notices that he's been having these weird prophetic dreams, all of which accurately come true in the course of the movie, including one in particular where he meets a fancy girl played by Spider-Man's girlfriend. Sorry, Tom Holland, the poly boy here might be competing with Zendaya for you. No, I'm not talking about the historian, I'm talking about the actor, but Tom Holland's a great guy too. So will Paul and his mother, played by Rebecca Ferguson, brilliant performance, will they survive the desert planet? Will the Harkonnens wipe out the Atreides? And will the Atreides set the Fremen free? All will be revealed in part 2. It's only the beginning, and we're only going to see part 2 if we succeed with the box office money. I really don't feel like I'm spoiling too much, as the plot is quite simple when you break it down. We all know of this Chosen One story where a messiah figure comes along and liberates the people around them. We've seen this done before. But the story of Dune finds its strengths in immersing the viewers into this world that they've made. This movie was very justified to have its length because there are many intricacies and complexities that go into making a movie like this. I might have heard some rumors saying that they didn't even get started with delving into the deeper lore of Dune. It's that complex. But is the story any good, you say? Well, there is a lot of drama between all these characters. There's themes of destiny and courage, all in this setting that embraces elements of the old and the elements of the new. And a sci-fi epic that feels very grounded when you think about it. The sets and the landscapes, the overall visuals look amazing. I don't think the CGI or practical effects distracted in any way. I think they were in harmony. Always felt like I could reach out and touch the spaceships, and I can genuinely imagine how those force fields could work effectively in battle. Even in smaller scenes, there's some sense of it being a spectacle. Honestly, the whole thing just looks stunning. It's grounded, it's gritty, it's beautiful. Honestly, if we ever colonized outer space, I wouldn't be surprised if it was similar to something like Dune. And many of you might be worried about the pacing. Yeah, it is practically a 3-hour movie, and I did have to hold in my pee. But I still felt the pacing was right. Yeah, the film was long, but I never felt bored. The reason I'm into stories like Samurai Jack is because the slow pacing doesn't take away, it actually adds to the experience. It gives you time to think, practically feel what's happening, get into the mood. Usually with fast pacing, you miss that. You never really get to see the attention to detail with the sets and everything else. Slow pacing makes for more immersive world building, if you ask me. Because not only are you telling and showing what it is, but you're also immersing the viewer into it. That's the next big step with world building. Immersing. Now, of course it's a long film, and as I said, I never felt bored by it, because here's the thing. In every scene, there's always something happening. There's this, is it an unspoken rule? But it's a rule for filmmaking that every scene you decide to film must progress the story in some way. Even if it's with a small character interaction that will affect the outcome of the story later on. This is why I really don't like slow-paced films like Mr. Turner, because nothing happens and it's boring. But here in Dune, the pacing is slow. Something is always happening, so you're always glued to the experience. Honestly, I think any cinema goer will love this movie. I think there was even a few callbacks to... There may have been a few callbacks to Lawrence of Arabia. Maybe I'm just overanalyzing it with the desert, but I definitely saw a parallel with Apocalypse Now, with the Baron's character wiping his sweaty bald head like Marlon Brando's character. A lot of villains seem to be taking cues from Marlon Brando's Colonel Kurtz these days. Stellan Skarsgård does an excellent villainous role here. He's usually known for these backdrop characters, and he's a great actor. The makeup artist did an excellent job giving him this large stature, followed by Stellan's performance having this guttural, deep booming kind of voice. As for the other performances, the majority of the actors are put in the right roles and they do their roles really well. Whether it be with this innate sense of responsibility or a sense of duty, depending on which character it is. Now, of course, there are a few celebrities being put into this film. Of course, some celebrities blend into the roles quite well. As we mentioned before, Stellan Skarsgård, Oscar Isaac as the Duke, Rebecca Ferguson as the Mother, they work really well. Other celebrity performances stick out like a sore thumb, and this can be for the better or for worse, depending on how much you can tolerate the celebrity of Zendaya and Jason Momoa. See, here's the thing. There are celebrities who can disappear into their roles, but Jason Momoa and Zendaya don't usually blend in. Usually they're just being themselves. And sometimes they try to give a new performance, but it can be a tad bit distracting. Not that they're bad performers by any means. But anyway, how do they do? Jason Momoa was a lot of fun. That in turn helped increase the bond between his character Duncan and the main character Paul. He provided much levity in the film through the humor. I can remember reading that spitting scene in the book before seeing that in the film, so in that sense I'm glad I read the book. As for Zendaya, I think she's a good actress, but a lot of people say that she's a bit too distracting with various roles she's been in. So I have heard a lot of people say that she doesn't appear in this movie frequently enough to be a distraction. There's an aura of mystery to her in that regard, in the fact that she only appears frequently in the film. Mainly through the dreams and not really making a major appearance until the end of the movie. But even if she was prominently in the movie, I don't see her as too much of a big distraction. The main appeal of Dune is in the capacity of the world building to delve into big, epic themes. Themes that are so big, you wouldn't really see them explored too often in much of the mainstream media. These big themes specifically delve into the very foundations of our society. They delve into politics, they delve into economy, they delve into religion. Yeah, no adaptation of Dune is complete without the religious symbolism in there. Now, if you've followed me for some time, you know I have a fascination with philosophy and theology. It's really opened my mind to how I perceive much of the stories around me, because philosophy/theology lies at the core of the themes and messages that stories are trying to convey. Whether it be the struggle to become the next Ubermensch in the Alien franchise and 2001: A Space Odyssey, or the themes of balance and light versus dark in the Star Wars franchise, or the competition of godhood in the Halo video game series. In this case, this film highly emphasizes the themes of prophecy. The major theme of this film is destiny, and how astonishing yet simultaneously scary it can be. The main protagonist, Paul, is having prophetic dreams that come true throughout the movie. And especially if you're familiar with the lore of Dune, there are various religious groups within this lore. Most prominently, there's the Bene Gesserit women's group, which are like psychic witches. Psychic witches work well for this grounded sci-fi setting, because whilst I would not endorse visiting a psychic, they do exist in the real world, so in terms of immersion, it works for this film. Also in the lore of Dune, it's made quite clear that societies have combined various religions together, majority of the Abrahamic religions peppered with a bit of the Eastern religious stuff, all culminating into what is known as the Orange Catholic Bible. So I can imagine people of various faiths watching this movie taking away various elements of the conflict between good and evil, or prophecy, or prophets, or stuff like that. However you interpret it, you cannot deny that in the context of the story, these events which happen, they can't just be pure coincidence. It seems that destiny has something in store for Paul, and he is frightened. I don't know if the film itself actually takes more time to delve into Paul's fears of these prophecies and what they imply. But in the end of the struggle, there's still hope. And Paul's just getting started in being the Messiah figure for the freemen of Arrakis. A lot of sci-fi tends to steer away from this sort of spiritual talk, because most science fiction places stories in settings where spirituality is almost irrelevant. What a lot of people nowadays seem to overlook is that there are lots of people from different religious backgrounds who have a lot of insight in the ways of technology and science. You can look into the intelligent design theories, for example. Of course, this movie doesn't explicitly delve into those details. I don't think the story exists to obligatorily endorse a certain faith. The story was made by its original author, Frank Herbert, to try to make sense of how society functions. Again, the themes of how society is formed, how it functions, and the conflicts that arise in society because of the way humans are. Frank Herbert, who wrote Dune, was a journalist, you see. He had these insights, and he wanted to write down his own insights of humanity in the book that he wrote, even if it was long-winded. And as of speaking about this in 2021, given recent conflicts in Afghanistan, and with the whole Taliban takeover, and with many people pointing their fingers towards corporate capitalism, I think this film came out at the right time, if you ask me. Of course, there have been other adaptations of this story, but I've yet to see them. The David Lynch version is quite infamously bad, so I heard. But will part 2 hold up compared to what we saw? We'll have to wait and see. In the meantime, I have a gym to go to.
I see it, I see